Welcome to the Excellence at Work podcast, where we explore the strategies and best practices that drive business success. I'm Rochelle Cook, COO of Brandon Hall Group and the host of our podcast, along with members of our executive team. In each episode, we'll dive into the latest trends, insights, and real-world examples from some of the most exciting leaders from organizations worldwide. Be part of our journey and learn from the best as we discuss innovative approaches and cutting-edge technologies for talent management, learning and development, leadership, diversity and inclusion, and more.
Hi, everyone. Michael Rochelle, Chief Strategy Officer and Principal Analyst here at the Brandon Hall Group. Thanks for joining us again on another Excellence at Work podcast here at the Brandon Hall Group Podcast Center. And I've got with us a very special guest. Pranav, I'm going to have you introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much, Michael. Great to be here. Myself, Pranav. I've been into AI since over a decade now, when it was not trending as much it is now. And I am leading the tech innovations and tech products at EI. So that's a little brief about me.
Excellent. And we're picking a pretty exciting topic today. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence and human intelligence. And I know you have a very unique perspective on that. So I think we're going to jump in and just start with the first question, which is, when we look at AI, we know that it's used to create personalized learning, but where is that sweet spot between AI and HI? How do you get the 1 + 1 = 3, where AI augments what human intelligence brings to the table?
Right. That's a very interesting question, because today, when people talk about AI, everyone wants to jump on the bandwagon and they want to do something with it. There's no clear objective or clear outcome that is associated or aligned with their purpose or the work that they're doing. Specifically, when we talk about personalized learning or content creation, in this specific space, we also need to understand that AI is based on the data that it has been trained on, and it is trying to mimic the correlation and the human intelligence that it's trying to depict from that data. When we talk about whether AI is good or human intelligence is good, how should we go about it? What should we choose or select? There are certain things that AI can do really quick, really fast. There are certain things humans do really well. So we need to understand that this again is a technology or a tool that is going to help us amplify what we already have. So if, as a learner, I have the niche or I have the inclination towards learning a particular piece, then I can use it and I can learn that better. From the instructor's standpoint, if I have an inclination of doing research, I want to do something new, I want to collate or I want to gather information quickly and then come out with inferences and ideations and build on it. So that AI can support with. So the sweet spot, I would say, would be somewhere in between, where the human notion is there at the core. And then this technology is utilized in a way to put it all together and amplify it, to bring it out in a way which suits the learners. We should also be very mindful that this technology, as much as the positives, there are certain aspects around data, around hallucinations, around inaccuracies that we all need to be very considerate about, focused about. We should, whenever we are working with it, we also need to be able to identify where it may go wrong or where it is going wrong. And that will obviously come through human intelligence. At the end of the day, we also need to be mindful where this piece of technology is just probabilities being pieced together. So if I am speaking a sentence, what AI basically does it is stitches this entire output together based on the probability of what word would come next. The word may be valid, it may be invalid. So the human aspect here is firstly to drive this tool in the right direction. It's like driving a car, where you can have like a Ferrari or you can have like a Toyota, whichever car it is. One might drive faster, one slower, but if you don't have the right direction, you'll end up damaging the car and yourself. So the sweet spot, I must say, is somewhere in the middle, where the human is at the heart of what work is being done. And then AI can support in bits and pieces, again, being guided or guardrailed by humans.
I like that perspective, Pranav, because you're basically saying the augmentation of AI is to make a human not necessarily be smarter about something, but more scalable. So the real intellect is coming from the human, and AI is just that big cruncher, that big driver. It's the perfect balance, right? The computational
Right.
horsepower against the creative mindset. And that's one of the clearest interpretations, that I've heard. Another area that people talk about with AI is just trying to improve the overall learner experience. And we're seeing a lot now with AI chatbots. There seems to be a wide spectrum of how they're being used and how they're being built. Like, how do you know you're building a truly engaging AI chatbot for learners?
When we talk about engagement, there are a couple of parameters that comes to my mind where we have to be very mindful on whether the bot is able to identify firstly the core subject that the user is engaging with. Second, it has to also understand the direction or the emotion attached with that specific subject. So there may be subjects that are not that heavy on technology or on science, but because of the emotional quotient or the emotional aspect of that particular topic, the bot can either be very engaging or it can go the other way around. The next piece attached around emotional intelligence is also the adaptability. So it may start off in a very wrong foot, but that constant feedback, the constant learning, that piece also should be somewhere embedded in the entire architecture of the bot, where it allows the bot to improve, be better, and wherever there is a lag or something is lacking, it can improvise and become better. So overall, when we talk about how can it be engaging, there are multiple ways. It can pick relevant topics up. We can design it in that way. It can understand what the feelings of an individual is and then tangent in that direction. The other day, I think 2 or 3 days back, I was listening to one of the tone of the voice adds a lot of other parameters. I can say hello in a very angry way. I can say hello in a very irritated way. So that adds a lot of other nuances and other data metrics, which a simple text will fail to suggest or identify or tell us. So in this way, what kind of a bot we are going to prepare or how the bot is going to work, what is going to be the end objective, all of those metrics come into the picture. And then there are other parameters also attached to it. So the design principles is one thing where how you're designing, how you're considering everything, the emotional bit, the verbiage, the tone, etc. And the other piece is also, are there any risks attached with this kind of a bot? So there may be a bit where the bot is doing a lot of critical thinking for the user. So that is again a little risk attached where I am basically offloading my cognitive capabilities. What I am supposed to think, what I am supposed to analyze, the bot is doing for me. So making it engaging is really important, and we need to keep all of these principles in mind. But we should also understand these critical elements where it doesn't go a bit too much, where it's rather than giving positive outcomes, it's going in the other direction.
And that's such an important point because there's two ways it can go bad, right? Which is to start elevating, just like the person is elevating. It's like, oh, if we're going to yell, that's the new way of communicating with each other. There's the other part too that I think you were getting at that is more subtle, and that is these chatbots don't have empathy. Like they can't feel and understand the situation. They get the gravity of what someone's bringing in their voice in terms of maybe being very nervous or being agitated or and just being able to say I understand where you're coming from like a human being could do. Really quickly, I was on with an AI agent just yesterday, and it was, I mean, were they factually correct? Yes. Did they speak my language? Yes. Did I feel any sense of comfort that, how they felt about me or my situation, or I've been on hold for 20 minutes and I'm already like, let's get to the point. It's sterile. It's very methodical. you have to kind of go
Right.
through the whole thing. So we got to figure out how that empathy works in there as well. So
Right. That's so true because frankly speaking, if we look at a lot of incidents happening around these AI bots, I recently read an article, not an article per se, like a post, which said that someone, I think it was in China, I'm not able to recollect the country, they created an AI bot and got married to them. So like people are not able to understand that whatever these bots are reacting or saying, it is simply some algorithm running in the back with some probabilistic calculations where all these emotions they are engineered into it. Like there have been multiple incidents where people have been in a way depressed. They talk to the bots. So now the bots are analyzing all of those parameters. They are making sure, the engineers are making sure that the bots don't reply in a very negative way, which has its own repercussions. So all of that can be engineered, but again, it can only happen to a certain extent.
right, can only go so far. So just kind of switching gears, another application of AI technology that we see happening is role plays. But as you know, being a technology expert, very few providers are willing to kind of pull back the curtain or take you backstage as to how these AI role plays really work. Uh, can you shed some insights onto how they actually work and what are realistic practice scenarios for something like this?
True, true. So this is something that we at EI we've been trying to build for a lot of clients, and there are multiple ways of doing it. So the core technology behind it is more on what do you want the bot to role play as. There are instances where we want it to be an evaluator. There are instances where we want it to be like a support assistant. There are instances where we want it to be like a tutor. Some instances where we have some compliance related documentation. So we needed to be a assistant that can guide folks on those specific topics. So at the core of it, if I talk pure tech, the back end of it is basically inference guardrailed by a certain set of knowledge. So you have the core LLM or the AI that is sitting on top of some knowledge that we have already pre-programmed it by. So let's say, for example, an evaluator or a HR recruiter for that matter, we have given it certain rubrics that, okay, this person is going to come, he or she is going to interact with you. These are the points or topics on which you have to analyze them. So then the LLM understands that scenario, picks that up, and then does its own magic and pops up certain questions. The user would then reply to those questions. Some bots are programmed in a way where the sequence of questions continue. So the next question is a continuation of the first one. The bot will try digging in deeper. It'll try analyzing what happens or what the user is trying to state with his answers. And based on that, it will move on to the next question. Another way is it just sticks to its 5, 10 questions that it has to ask on those specific bullet points or rubrics. And it moves on. So it'll ask question number one, done. Evaluation complete. Second question, done. Evaluation, and it'll go on that. Behind the scenes, under the hood, there is an LLM guardrailed with some knowledge base. It has rubrics plugged into it, the evaluation mechanisms, what report we want out of the entire exercise, that is put together in a way that the bot and the replies to the bot can be analyzed and we can get the report populated. In the front of it, it may be a very complicated avatar based bot. So you might have seen many companies who have like avatars sitting in the front and they're speaking. You may have it like a simple face, like a emoji on the screen, which does not speak, does not say, like does not move per se, but there is voice that is going on. So there are different ways of making it and implementing it. So, and we can obviously configure it in a way that we want it to work like. So all of that can be done. So behind the scenes, it's basically LLM with some knowledge base, with some instructions, and it does its own magic. Michael, you're on mute.
I think you took the mystery out of it because it's really an LLM. It's really something that we're already familiar with, just being used in a different way. It's not a whole net new piece, which I think will make our audience a lot more comfortable because I think a lot of folks think that every time they learn about a new AI application, it must be like a brand new way of AI is being applied, but it's related in one way. So if they can get comfortable with one form of AI, then, the applications of it's familiar to them, which is super helpful. I've never
Similar.
had anyone explain it quite that way. So I think there may be some sighs of relief out there for the people that are listening in. Another area, and I think it's probably the most challenging in my humble opinion, is AI being used for insights, dashboards, predicting the future, helping humans to decide what should happen and what shouldn't happen, that whole decision-making matrix. L&D teams, I think, are still trying to get their head wrapped around that. How do you think that's all going right now for L&D teams?
Right. So that's currently in a very interesting time, I must say, because we receive a lot of requests of this sort and we put a lot of such dashboards together based on what exactly does one specific person want to see out of that information that they have. The interesting part is that if there are multiple people using that platform, everyone wants it personalized to their role, to their team, to their designation, or some other objective or other parameter that they have. So if we look at how all of this started off, or from where it has come to where it is today, analysis was always there. If you look at the good old days of machine learning algorithms, regression, logistic regression, and all of those type of, I'm getting a little too technical here though, but all of these algorithms have been existing. We have been using them in different ways of analyzing. There have been tools like Power BI that have existed where visualizations have come in front and we were able to analyze it and make data driven decisions. With this new trend of AI, what has changed is that rather than having a single, simple, straightforward dashboard, teams are now able to customize it on the fly as and when they need. So today, if I come as a technology leader, I would be able to see on my dashboard from the technology standpoint what I want to analyze, evaluate from my team or any other team. Rather, if there is an operational leader coming in, looking at the same platform, with just one click of a button, they can simply reorganize the entire dashboard to be able to see and analyze what they think or they want in the evaluation that they have to do. So overall, the space is in a very interesting and very dynamic juncture where everything can be readjusted, aligned, and it is actually happening. So there are various parameters that go into it. There are various aspects people want to analyze and retrieve. I remember back in the day when I had started off my machine learning and data science journey, there was one example where I think Walmart had done that study, if I'm not wrong. They wanted to see what items are correlated while selling, and then they would want to place those items close by. So, interestingly, there was a correlation between a pack of baby diapers and a pack of beer, which have in the wildest of dreams, there's no correlation between that. But they found that whenever there is a diaper packet being purchased, there is some beer packet is also being purchased. And when they did a bit more in-depth analysis, they realized that majority of the diaper packets were purchased by men who were heading home from work in the evening. So what they would do, they would also grab a beer while they're heading home along with that diaper. So all of these technologies have existed and they have been showing such interesting correlations. Wildly, people wouldn't have even imagined that there could be such a correlation between these two items or these two products. But with AI coming into the picture, what has happened is that everything has become even more dynamic and it has been amplified. So now you can get into the nitty-gritties to a greater extent. But along with this, I would also want to add a word of caution that sometimes over analysis can also lead to problems. So obviously, analytics is important, evaluations are supposed to be done, but we should not try over measuring things. So that is something that we need to be mindful of.
Can you speak a little bit, Pranav, about the idea too that what you put in is what you get out with analytics, and that AI doesn't automatically clean up your messy database and fix the data that isn't right and make it all pristine, and then it just comes out perfect. I think a lot of folks are thinking that somehow AI scrubs everything and makes it all right, but it's still that data in, data out kind of approach.
Exactly.
What do L&D
Right.
teams need to do in order to make sure their data is in good shape before they start using it to predict the future?
That's a very good question because that is the core of it all. So it all starts with data. And back in the day, when we used to run Python algorithms, there is a language called R for statistical analysis. We used to use that for analyzing and running all of these supervised and unsupervised algorithms. The first step that we would do was data cleaning, and it was a very tedious task. We would write scripts to eliminate redundancies, eliminate uncaptured or not applicable information. And then before even starting the correlation, if there is something missing, if some data is missing, we would try to interpolate it. We would try to figure out what is fitting, what is not. So for the teams today, you don't have to go through all of that mess. Today, data is in abundance. You can gather whatever you want today. Today, if I want to check how good or bad my team is performing, I can just create a form and share a survey out, and I'll get all the details I need. I can even be so precise that I can share a survey in the form of a numeric feedback. So I can directly take that and I can, I don't even need to do sentiment analysis on text. We need to have in mind as a organization towards learning and development that what you want to achieve, that is the main goal or aim or objective. You need to be really focused. That is pivotal. You need to have it at the center. And then you start small and gradually start building up. You identify that goal, then you identify what does that goal depend on. And then all that data, how are you going to gather it? So cleaning today, fetching, analyzing, storing, all of that again is not as difficult today because today we have so many mediums of collecting. So like when our podcast also, people would be listening them, they can also give feedback to it and we can collect and we can improve and all of that. So data is present all across. We need to identify what is important. We need to move the noise out of the relevant data. So we need to filter it out properly. Then from that information, from that data, we can feed it into the systems. We can use it for evaluation, for dashboard creations, for reportings based on the rubrics that we want. Again, we need to be very mindful that overfitting is a very problematic situation where if you overfit it, the entire evaluation goes for a toss. And initially, if you remember back in the day when these AI models were released, they were very overfitted to certain type of data or users or topics. So if you talk about a specific topic, they'll be all yes, 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 yes. But if you go on the other direction, they would be no, no. So we need to be very mindful on where we want to head, how we are collecting the data, how we are filtering it out, and we start small. Also, be very mindful that there are a lot of risks associated to these technologies as well. So inaccuracies are there, hallucinations are there. There may be challenges in adopting all of these technologies. So keeping all of these things in mind, whatever the organization tries to start small, build it up gradually, test it out, and then proceed. The software would develop once, and then you would test it out, and then you would roll it out. With these technologies, the rollout in reality is never ending because the software or the algorithm itself is learning and evolving. So that is something that we definitely need to be mindful of.
That's just an all-inclusive explanation, and it's a great segue to the last question. Is our research shows that L&D teams, about half of them are just starting their journey, just putting the toe in the water, as they say, to get this started. For the folks out there in the audience that are starting their AI journey, what's the best advice you can give them? What's that starting point? What's that one thing that gets them moving in the right direction?
To all of them who are starting, you need to first identify what is the problem that you're trying to solve. Just because a specific technology exists does not mean that we have to get it in and use it. So identify the problem, start small, build on top of it, And you need to be able to adapt very quickly. These technologies are very fast pacing. They change at a speed that it is unimaginable. It's very difficult to keep track. It may be a possibility that by the time we started this podcast and when we'll be concluding it, during that duration, there might be 10 new technology pieces that have been advanced or released. So it's very difficult to track. So you need to be agile. You need to be ready to upskill and keep realigning on how the solution is coming out and how you have to adjust it. And the final piece is make sure the human in the loop is always present because you cannot risk everything falling apart. So as you start small with the human oversight and you keep building on top of it, that's how you gradually progress. And probably it will take some time for the results to show, but keep doing it and you will be able to solve the problem that you started with.
Well, I appreciate your time today. Very easy to understand soon. So it was just terrific catching up with you. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was so great to talk to you and all the listeners. One last piece that I would want to put it out there is don't be afraid to use it. Use it, definitely, but be very mindful when you're applying what you're using. So
We can't be afraid. I sometimes use the analogy of AI is like fire. That it's a marvel, but you have to handle it with care. But you don't want to not use it at all. So you got to kind of figure out that
exactly.
careful, thoughtful approach to using it. So those are wise words. But thank you again, and we'll have to catch up with you in 2026 because this is like dog years, how fast this is evolving. So maybe somewhere through mid 2026, we can see how far along things have come from where we are today. But thank you again. This is Michael Rochelle, Chief Strategy Officer, Principal Analyst here at the Brandon Hall Group. Appreciate you listening in. Until our next time, have a great day.